Let's speak to Jamil Jaffer, founder of the National Security Institute at George Mason University and a former assistant counsel on defence to George W. Bush. Jamil, hello, welcome to the programme.
Thanks for having me on, Henry.
Thank you. First of all, your response. I want to quote President Trump directly from his Truth Social post. He said, "Moments ago at my direction, the United States Central Command executed one of the most powerful bombing raids in the history of the Middle East and totally obliterated every military target in Iran's crown jewel, Karg Island. Our weapons are the most powerful and sophisticated that the world has ever known, but for reasons of decency, I have chosen not to wipe out the oil infrastructure on the island." Your response?
Well, look, I mean, the president has made clear that the targets in Iran are military targets. He's sought to avoid oil infrastructure. We know that the Israelis struck some oil infrastructure earlier this week. That led to some conversations, we understand, between the White House and the Netanyahu government. And apparently those strikes have been more limited now. And so we'll see how this plays out. But certainly this is an effort to raise pressure on Iran. We've been hitting military targets all over Iran, including in Tehran and now Karg Island in the Persian Gulf.
The president continues by saying this, however, should Iran or anyone else do anything to interfere with the free and safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, I will immediately reconsider this decision. I want you to link that thought with the news which is carried on the front page of both the Times and then, of course, in more detail here, the Daily Telegraph in the UK, that Mr. Trump is sending Marines into the Middle East, some 5,000, and they're tasked with reopening the Strait of Hormuz. We're talking about a warship, the USS Tripoli, that has departed from Okinawa, Japan, and it's got a Marine Amphibious Ready Group, the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, on board. What do you think of that task and that decision?
Well, look, it's clear that the president is not going to accept the Straits of Hormuz being closed. He's not going to accept oil not being able to transit it. We've obviously seen an effect on global oil prices over the last week. They've gone up and they've gone down in response to potential closure of the Strait of Hormuz. It's also clear the president isn't that interested, at least thus far, in escorting ships through the straits, although that's been discussed. We haven't yet done that. He's now saying this Marine Expeditionary Unit, and their goal is clearly going to be to clear out that space and ensure that the Iranians can't block that strait. Now, the strait's a very narrow space. They can use missiles at Bandar Abbas and other places to potentially attack that. We've attacked a lot of their missile infrastructure, so that makes it harder. They, however, do still have these small boats that they can drive up to a large tanker and try to blow it up or threaten it. They also have mines available where they can mine the Gulf itself or those choke points like the Straits. So we'll see how the Iranians react, but the deployment of this Marine group is clearly a sign that the president is frustrated with the potential threat to the Straits of Hormuz and the resulting rise in oil prices that we've seen.
But how risky a mission is this, given everything that you've said? The Iranians know this territory very well. They're sitting, they're waiting, they're saying, we have sovereignty, and we warned you what would happen, and now we're going to do it.
Well, look, I mean, the Iranians can do what they want to do. The reality is that the Iranian military is significantly degraded after these months and months of Israeli bombing and now U.S. bombing as well. And this last sort of, week, 2 weeks of war significantly degraded their military capabilities. That being said, they do still have these capabilities to conduct small arms attacks. They have the ability to conduct these attacks against boats and the like. And so if they do it at their peril, because the president has made clear he will up the ante if need be. He may free up the Israelis to attack more oil infrastructure. He may attack the oil infrastructure there on Karg Island. So there's a lot of targets remaining in Iran. So if the Iran regime, wants to fight fire with fire, they can go ahead. It's not a war that they ultimately will win, but we'll see how this goes over the next few weeks and months. The other thing that's interesting about the deployment of the Marines is those Marines, yes, could deploy onto other ships and try to capture ships, stop the forces, but they also can deploy on the ground. And so that might be a question. Will we deploy a small contingent of Marines on the ground, either, at Bandar Abbas, at Karg Island, or somewhere else in the region in order to sort of secure those facilities and prevent any attacks on shipping going through the Gulf or the Straits of Hormuz? That might be a really interesting dynamic that might take place. The president generally said he's going to stay away from boots on the ground. This may be a short-term form of boots on the ground that he might be willing to engage in.
But it always starts off with short-term, doesn't it? And then often it becomes much, much longer. It ends up being years, sometimes even decades.
No, Henry, that's exactly it. What began as a police action in Korea became a multi-year war there. Now, that being said, the president is very committed, it seems, to keeping this war short and constrained and to the point. The question is, when do you achieve the goals that he set forth? He set goals like eliminating their ability to have a nuclear program, eliminating their ability to attack from the sea with their Navy, eliminating their ability to launch ballistic missiles, their ability to support terror infrastructure. He's called for the Iranian people to rise up and remove their regime. These are a variety of tasks he's given the U.S. military to get to a point, and it's not clear when we'll achieve that goal. The president said, just this past week, we've won, but just not enough. I'm not sure what winning but not enough means, but...
Yeah, Jamil, I need to dive in there. Yeah, you've really taken the words out of my mouth, because the US and Israel both said, well, we've hit 15,000 targets since the 28th of February. And of course, War Secretary Hegseth claims Iran's missiles, their missile launchers and drones are being destroyed or shot out of the sky. They're still hitting their neighbours, although more sporadically than at the beginning, Jamil. How do we assess how successful this has been? Because if you remember last June, the 12-day war, Trump claimed that he had destroyed Iran's nuclear capability, but clearly he hadn't.
Yeah, the problem here is that when you use terms like obliterated, those aren't terms that have real military meaning. He talks about obliterating their nuclear program. He talks about obliterating these facilities on Karg Island. But it's not clear what that means. Have you struck and destroyed all the military facilities? Are they completely inoperable? Is all the equipment that was there gone? And if not, what's more left to be done? And so we've wiped out their ballistic missile program, but there's still more to be done, right? So I think this is the hard question. I think ultimately what you have to do is look to the military to give you actual what are called battle damage assessments or bomb damage assessments. We haven't seen any of those coming from the military. All we've heard is from Secretary Hegseth and President Trump that have been wiping stuff out left and right. And there's no doubt we've taken a significant chunk out of the capabilities of the Iranian military. But remember, Henry, this is a military, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards itself, 109,000 strong, the regular army, another 300,000, and then the Basij paramilitary, the militia, that's another 600,000 strong. That's just a manpower. Forget the equipment. And so taking it all out is not going to happen in a week or two or even 4 weeks. And so if you really want the Iranian people to rise up, it's going to be a much longer sustained campaign from the air. This will not be over in a few weeks. If the president ends it in a couple of weeks, we'll have missed a historic opportunity to really allow the Iranian people to take their regime back and to really create peace in the Middle East. What will ultimately happen is we'll have to go back in 3-4 weeks, 3-4 months, and do this again, sort of that mowing the lawn strategy we've seen with the Israelis in Lebanon. I'm not sure the U.S. is interested or wanting to do that. That may be where we end up, though, if we end this war in a couple of weeks.
And at what cost to human life on the ground? So far, over 1,400 individuals killed on the ground, according to the Iranian Health Ministry. And altogether in the region, about 2,000 people, including in Lebanon, Israel, and of course U.S. troops as well, and individuals in neighbouring countries. Jamil Jaffer, founder of the National Security Institute at George Mason University, thank you very much.